James Harper, a 70-year-old man battling heart failure, found his greatest pride and joy in his son, Ethan. At 25, Ethan had followed in his father's footsteps, choosing to serve his country as a soldier in the U.S. Army. James, a former captain in the Vietnam War, had instilled a deep sense of patriotism in his son through his tales of bravery and sacrifice. Ethan, inspired by his father's heroism, had always aspired to make him proud. One day, Ethan came home with news that he was being deployed to Afghanistan. As he prepared to leave, James embraced him with a mixture of pride and concern. "Take care of yourself, son. There's a father here waiting for you," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. Ethan hugged him tightly and replied, "Don't worry, Dad. I'll make you proud." Neither of them knew it would be their final goodbye. At first, James received regular updates from Ethan, which brought him comfort amidst his worry. But then the updates suddenly stopped. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, with no word from his son. James tried to reassure himself, thinking, he must be busy. Maybe it's hard to communicate from where he is. However, as 2 months passed without a single message, James's anxiety grew unbearable. Desperate for answers, he reached out to military authorities, only to be met with the same vague responses. "We haven't received any information. Please be patient." These empty reassurances did little to calm his fears. Instead, they amplified his growing sense of dread. Sleepless nights became the norm. His heart condition worsened under the weight of worry, and the gnawing thought that something terrible had happened to Ethan consumed him. Determined not to remain silent, James made a bold decision. He would take his fight to the public. With a handmade sign in his hands, James stood outside the White House, initiating a one-man protest. The sign, written in bold letters, read, "Where is my son Ethan? Give me answers." Passers-by began to take notice of the distressed man. Some stopped to show support, while others simply watched from a distance. As James's protest gained attention, one of Trump's security guards noticed him and approached. "Sir, you can't stay here," the guard said firmly, attempting to move him along. But James, his voice filled with anguish, refused to back down. "This is my son. I just want to know where he is. I gave my life to this country, and I deserve an answer," he shouted, his voice cracking with pain. Suddenly, James clutched his chest and collapsed to the ground, overcome by the strain on his heart. At that exact moment, Donald Trump, traveling in his limousine, noticed the commotion. Stepping out of his car, Trump saw James lying on the ground and immediately instructed his team, "Get this man to the hospital now." Thanks to Trump's swift intervention, James was rushed to the hospital, where doctors worked to stabilize his condition. The next morning, James Harper slowly opened his eyes to the soft hum of activity around him. His vision cleared, and he was shocked to see Donald Trump sitting at the foot of his hospital bed. For a moment, James thought he was dreaming. With a shaky voice, he murmured, "Mr. President." Trump gave a warm, reassuring smile as he leaned forward and gently placed a hand on James's shoulder. "Mr. Harper," he said, in a calm and empathetic tone, "I've heard your story, and it's deeply moving. I understand your concerns about your son. Please, tell me everything. I want to help in any way I can." James took a deep breath, his throat tight with emotion. His eyes filled with tears as he began to speak. "President Trump," he said, his voice trembling, "I gave everything for this country. As a young man, I was sent to Vietnam. I served as a captain, leading brave men into battles that still haunt me to this day. Many of the men I fought alongside never made it back. Every day felt like a farewell." Trump listened intently, his expression unwavering. As James continued, his words steeped in sorrow. "I'll never forget one night. We were in an ambush. My closest friend, Eric, was right beside me. We fought side by side, but then there was an explosion. He was gone in an instant. I couldn't save him. The blast left me deaf for days, but I kept going because I believed in serving my country." Trump took a deep breath, nodding slowly. "Mr. Harper, your sacrifices are beyond words. "What you've endured is the definition of heroism," he said. James gave a faint smile and replied, "I did it for my country, Mr. President. But now, my story with Ethan is even harder. I raised him to love this nation as much as I do. I taught him the value of service and sacrifice. He wanted to be a hero, just like me. But now, I haven't heard from him in months." James wiped away a tear, his voice breaking. "Ethan is my everything, Mr. President. I've always been so proud of him. Even when he was deployed to Afghanistan, I supported him, despite my fears as a father. But 2 months ago, the communication stopped. No letters, no calls, nothing. I don't know where he is or if he's even alive. This uncertainty is tearing me apart." Trump leaned closer, his voice firm yet compassionate. "Mr. Harper, I can't begin to imagine the pain and uncertainty you're going through. But I promise you, we will get to the bottom of this. I'll do whatever it takes to find out what happened to Ethan." James looked up at Trump, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Mr. President. I would give anything to know what happened to my son. Whether the news is good or bad, I just need to know. I need closure." Turning to his advisors, Trump spoke with determination. "I want every piece of information about this man's son. Leave no stone unturned. This is a priority, and I expect results quickly." James managed a faint smile, his voice steadier now. "Mr. President, I trust you. If there's anyone in this country who can help me, it's you," he said. Trump's eyes reflected both resolve and empathy as he replied, "Men like you, who have given so much for this country, deserve nothing but our utmost respect and action. Rest assured, we will find answers." The room fell into a poignant silence. James's harrowing memories from Vietnam and the anguish of not knowing Ethan's fate deeply moved everyone present. Trump, visibly affected, left the room more determined than ever to uncover Ethan's story. For James, this moment offered a glimmer of hope, a chance for answers, and the possibility of finding peace. A few days later, Trump visited James in the hospital once again. This time, he carried a file containing the information James had been desperately waiting for. As James's hopeful eyes met Trump's, the president hesitated, his expression somber. Sitting down beside James, he opened the file, took a deep breath, and began to speak. "Mr. Harper," Trump said gently, "I'm afraid I have some devastating news. Your son, Ethan, was killed in action during a mission in Afghanistan." James froze as the words sunk in. His face turned pale, and tears began streaming down his cheeks. He sat silently, his heart heavy with grief. Trump placed a comforting hand on James's shoulder and spoke with heartfelt compassion. "Mr. Harper, your son gave his life for his country. He was a hero, and he will always be remembered as one. This nation will never forget his sacrifice." James, his voice choked with emotion, managed to say, "Ethan was my everything. But if he died for this country, then he died with honor." His tears fell freely as he held his head in his hands. Trump reassured James, promising him that Ethan's bravery would be recognized and honored with a national ceremony. "We will ensure that Ethan's sacrifice is remembered and celebrated. His legacy will inspire others," Trump added. The tragic news not only left an indelible mark on James, but also resonated deeply across the nation. Ethan's story became a symbol of ultimate sacrifice and patriotism. Despite his pain, James found solace in knowing that his son's memory would live on, inspiring others to value duty, honor, and love for their country. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Join us for more inspiring stories that remind us of the power of sacrifice, love, and resilience.